Hello and welcome to Genesis, the language of creation. I am Rabbi Rafi Mallet, everybody's Rebbe. We have in the studio with us tonight or this morning or afternoon, depending where you are in the world. We have Abigail, Angela, Colin, and T. Bishop. We have 3 people watching on YouTube. I'm actually going to add the studio link to the YouTube chat in case people want to pop in. And I see Lisa on YouTube says shalom. And what other announcements can I make? If you'd like to support the channel, become a channel member. You will get perks such as early access to my new content. This live stream will be members only for 1 week following the live stream. Sawyer is here. How come you're not in the studio, Sawyer? Lisa just joined the studio. All the cool people are doing it. What was I saying? Yeah, and my YouTube shorts come out 1 day early. And in addition, I forgot to mention, I have a series on the Noahide laws, which is a members only playlist that you can check out if you become a channel member. It's a work in progress. It's nowhere near all the Noahide laws. I know you're like, there's only 7 of them, but we go into great detail. Let's just put it that way. And but it's a series in progress. I did about 20 installments over the last summer, and then I got very busy during the school year. Peer pressure. Sawyer's in the studio, and I'm hoping this summer to continue it. We'll get a bit further. And that'll be fun. And what else? If you'd like to support the channel in a more significant way, we have donate links in the video description. You can also shop at artscroll.com using my affiliate link, artscroll.com/Rebbe Rafi, REBBIRAFI. And any purchases you make will earn me a small commission, but is what it is. Okay. Thank you all for being here. Any questions or comments before we get underway? Okay. Here's the text. Here's our favorite little view over here. And last time we did verse 5, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and it was evening and it was morning one day. So for discussion on that, you can refer to last week's class. And now we get to verse 6. If there are no questions or comments before we begin, I will go ahead and jump right in.
Yeah, Rabbi, can you just remind me, at the end of the last class, you were talking about one day versus day one. Can you just go over that, why it actually says
what I said there, I don't remember everything I said. And by the way, just you reminded me something. I've been going through a lot of the classes in this series and my recent series on the prophets, which we're doing Ovadia, and I've been editing the video description to include what's called chapters. So chapters is if you put a timestamp in the video description with like a description of that timestamp, so then YouTube will insert a break in the video, so, and you can see the breaks. Like if you skim the video, I think that it's called skimming or something. I forgot what it's called, but basically, like if you take your mouse and you like run it over that little bar on the bottom, the progress bar, you'll be able to see where these breaks are. Or you could just look in the video description, and you can go to specific points in the class covering, whatever specific topic we're talking about, which I tried to divide up in a sensible way. So a lot of the classes in this series have been chapterized, and in that other series, last week's class, not so yet, but just something to check out. Now, what did I say? I don't remember. I think we said a lot. But one of the things I said is in Hebrew, Yom Echad, meaning one day, or meaning day one. It's the same in Hebrew. There's no difference in how you would express one day would be Yom Echad, and day one would also be Yom Echad. So which one is meant in the verse? Is it saying day one or one day? If you want to say day one, that kind of makes sense. The next verse, though, is not going to be day two. It's going to be a second day. So there's no first day. We don't get a first day. We get day one or one day, and then we get a second day. So there's no sequence in the first one. Now, we talked a bit about Schroeder's book. Someone emailed me about it. It's called, here's a number of books. The two books where he talks about this is Genesis and the Big Bang. And then his follow-up book called The Science of God. When I met him, I asked him which I should buy, and he told me I should buy The Science of God because he summarizes in that book whatever he wrote in Genesis and the Big Bang, plus he adds more. So he considered it like an enhanced version. So I can tell you what it says there. He says that, welcome back. He says, the reason it says day one is because since we're going through time as it's happening, there's no second day relative to which you can say a first day. First implies second, but we're in the beginning when there is no second yet. So how can you say first? First needs a sequence. A sequence needs multiplicity, which doesn't exist yet. There's still only one day. So therefore, while the first day is expressed as day one, only after that you can express a second day because you in fact have now two. What big difference does it make whether you say day one or one day? Well, day one does seem more sequential because it could be followed by day two, right? And that would seem to fit with the rest of the days. There's day one, but then there's a second day, a third day. Another way that I interpreted it as one day is to say there was evening and there was morning one day, that if you look at the whole verse, he called the light day and the dark night, and there was evening and there is right, and there was evening and there was morning one day, meaning if you look at the globe of the earth at any given time, it is both night and day and evening and morning all simultaneously. It just depends where you are on the earth. You could be in one place where it's the middle of the day. On the opposite side of the earth, it's the middle of the night. So it's day and night. And then if you're on the again, if that's 180 degrees from each other. So if you're at the 90 degree of those two places, in one place, it'll be transitioning from day to night, what's called evening, or it'll be transitioning the opposite side of that from night to day will be called morning. So all four time periods, night, day, evening, morning, are all represented simultaneously on the earth at any given time. So when God creates the day and the night, which creates as a result of the day and the night, and then there's a point of where they're blending together, one is transitioning into the other, the evening and the morning, that represents one day. So you have in that verse, and God called the light day and the darkness he called night, and there was evening and there was morning one day, meaning all that in a single picture is a picture of one day. Okay, that's one understanding. Does that more or less address your question?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. And I think it's another way is over the course of 24 hours in one spot on the earth. So you could, if you look at the whole earth at one time, you have one day happening simultaneously at every moment. But if you pick one spot, you'll have all four of those periods over the course of 24 hours would be one day also. That a night and a day and an evening and a morning equals one day. So day one day, either way. Now, going ahead with verse number 6. Let me see if I can I make this a little larger? Yeah. Now, I know as soon as I click on anything, so then the sidebar is going to pop up on Safari. But do the best we can. So here, this first word here, Vayomer, again, and he said, followed by the subject, Elohim is God, or Elohim. And God said, Yehi, we had this verb before. What's this verb? Yehi. We had it.
Was?
Oh, not quite. because
there
that's
be.
past tense and this is future tense.
there
It
be.
will be, right? The first time we had that was in verse 3, and God said, Yehi, or there will be light, or let there be light, if you will. There shall be light. Vaihi, and we said the vav reverses it to past, and there was light. So that was let there be light, or there shall be light. Now it's Yehi, there shall be what? Rakia. When we get to Rakia, this is the big puzzle and the big mystery of the verse. Now, everybody knows these verses in Genesis. What is Rakia? How do you translate Rakia?
Firmament?
Firmament. Now, what on earth is a firmament? Or what not on earth is a firmament? What's that?
You got me on that one.
Right? How worthless of a translation is firmament? Anyone have a clue? So, I mean, you see in the firmament the word firm. Does that have anything to do with the word rakia in Hebrew? I guess we'll find out. Now, so I don't know. Does anyone? I just want to know, when someone reads this book in English and it says, "Let there be a firmament," what does that what does that mean to anyone?
I always just imagined it was like the atmosphere, but
Okay.
I never really had any thought beyond that. I didn't know, like,
Right. You
what
never used the word firmament in your life, and you
Never.
never saw the word firmament used in any other context. But suddenly this word comes into being, firmament. And the question is why? And what is it? Okay. Now, you may not be so far off when you say the atmosphere, but what does that have to do with being a firmament? And what does that have to do with the word rakia? Okay. So if I do click on it, what is Safari going to tell me? Rakia says extended surface, solid, maybe, expanse, firmament. There it is. Okay. Not very helpful. The best translation here is the extended surface. The extended surface. Okay. Now, okay, so let's just talk about the word rakia. We have over here the word has a shoresh. It has a root. What is the root of the word rakia? Could anyone guess what the root is? If you had to pick 3 letters in this word to be its root, which 3 would you pick? So it's reish. Shrey, speak up. I can't hear you.
Reish Kof Ayin?
Reish Kuf Ayin. Reish Kuf Ayin. Liz also says atmosphere. Okay. Reish Kuf Ayin. So let me just highlight those letters for a second. Here's the reish. Here's the kuf. And the ayin's at the end. Okay. So where else do we see this shoresh? Does anyone know? Okay. It comes up in other places. Not the most common shoresh. But if you are an Orthodox Jew, then you say this word every day, at least once in your prayers. And on Shabbat, you might say it more than once. Okay, now there's a blessing in the morning blessings. Okay, let's look at it because it's on Safari. Safari actually has all the prayers. Let's go. Let's find it. Seder HaTefillah, okay, the order of prayers. We'll go to Sidur Ashkenaz because I'm Ashkenaz, so I'm going to use my Sidur here, my prayer book. We have the weekday prayers, the morning prayers, okay, and we'll go to the first section. It's called Hachana L'Tefillah, the preparation for prayer. Not really. There's a bunch of blessings here. So we get to Birchot HaShachar, the morning blessings. Okay, there's some very interesting blessings here. We won't go through all of them right now, but we get to this one over here. We say Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, our God, King of the world, King of the universe. Roka. Sorry, it kind of reoriented the screen. Roka haaretz al hamayim. We bless God that he performs this act. He does roka with the earth, the aretz al hamayim, over the water. He's roka the earth over the water. What is roka? So if I went to my Sefaria translation, could I get an English translation? They won't even give me an English translation? Seriously? Oh, here, I have to go here for the English translation. Translation. We'll do source with translation. Okay. Who spreads the earth above the waters. Spreads out. Spreads out the earth above the waters. We bless God every day that for terra firma. Thank you for keeping the earth above the waters. If you wouldn't keep the earth above the waters would cover the earth. We'd all die. And that goes very much towards what we've been talking about in Genesis. Like I said, when the water covered the earth, so the Spirit of God hovered over the water, like we said, there was nowhere for it to rest because there was no place of settlement of man. And God's purpose was mankind. So his presence, his spirit, as it were, was not ready to rest. So we thank God for spreading the earth out over the water and not the other way around. So let's get back to our verse. And it appears in other, that blessing is taken from a verse in the Psalms where it says, Roka ha'aretz al hamayim, God spreads the earth over the water, kila olam chasto, because his kindness is everlasting. So that's just, we just took that verse and we turned it into the form of a blessing. Okay, chapter 1, let's go back to verse number 6. Okay, so now we have a noun that's being made out of that verb, and it's a rakia. And so, like we said, an extended surface is a good translation. Just like roka ha'aretz, he takes the earth and extends it, spreads it out over the water. This rakia, it's some type of an extended surface. And another way this verb is used, in Hebrew, the word reka, just take those three letters, resh kuf ayin. Reka means a background. So you see I have a cute background here because I have a green screen. So this is my reka, my background. It's a spread out surface background. Okay. When a person is rokeya in Hebrew, it's very often used in terms of like a smith. He takes a piece of metal and he bangs it and thins it out and spreads it, right? He turns it into a thin, narrow sheet. So when someone turns metal into a thin sheet, that's called rokeya. Okay, so we're spreading out this thinned material. All right. We have some YouTube comments. The flat earthers are raging right now because of the Rakia. Could you elaborate what you mean by that? Here, firmament refers to the vault or arch of the sky, often associated with the heavens. It has its origins in the Latin word firmamentum, which translates the Hebrew word rakia. Meaning what? There's a Latin translation of the Torah where rakia is firmamentum, the vault or arch of the sky associated with the heavens. Okay, so again, I'm not sure that a firmament is a direct translation, but because the word firmament was used as the arch of the sky, and rakia is seen as referring to, as we'll see, something related to the sky, maybe that's why they put those two words together. I'm not sure. I don't know the origin of these translations. But is someone making a comment?
Rabbi Mullet, it's
Yeah.
Lisa.
Yeah, hi.
I got to thinking, you know how you have different layers that you have the hemisphere, the atmosphere, and the stratosphere. And you have the same thing with the earth, where it has the, I think about just the layer of the earth with the grass and the trees.
Right.
When I think about this firmament, and I was wondering if maybe something, especially when you were like the background or does that make any sense?
Well, I'm not sure. Are you suggesting that the rakia is the ground?
Possibly. like it's being built in layers, like, first the firmament, while
Okay.
everything else is being kind of put together, and because
So
when it separates the water and the water, I look at that like, of course, in the atmosphere there's water, and on the earth there's water. So that water had to rest somewhat, well, I'm rambling. I feel like I'm rambling now. But it was just a thought, like as everything's being created, maybe just that the shell of the earth or something of that nature, maybe.
So what you're suggesting is that there's a layer of earth that divides water from water, like there's underground water, which we know is
Well, there
true,
is.
and the above ground water, and maybe the rakia is some type of a firm layer in between,
Like, well, no, I'm
especially in the
thinking
light of.
more. Go ahead, finish.
No, I was trying to elaborate what you were saying in light of the verse or the blessing that I showed you, that God is Rokah, he spreads the earth over the water, that maybe that you want to apply that to this verse.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
kind of what.
I'll tell you, I give you points for creative thinking. I don't know. I can tell you that that would be a very off the beaten path way of understanding it, because most, if not all, of the commentaries that I've seen relate it definitely to something above the water, not beneath meaning above the water as we know it, meaning, let's say, like what you would call today maybe the oceans, but we don't have oceans yet in the story of Genesis. We just have water. Oceans will, both land and oceans will appear on the third day, although you're, what it says there is that God sort of collects the waters into one place, revealing the land. It doesn't say he creates the land, revealing the land. So it's not to say he couldn't have made the land underwater first and then revealed it the next day. But I have not seen any commentaries suggest that. So I think it would be a very bold interpretation. Although, could I rule it out just on the basis of the words alone? Not yet. I could tell you I've never seen such an interpretation. So it's creative. In my mind, it's very creative. I give you points for creativity. But it's not the traditional understanding. That's all I can say. I'm not here to dictate what it means. John Volkov says, flat earthers claim Earth is flat, oblong shape, and the Rakia acts as a barrier. There's no space as we see it. The sun and moon are local objects that move around, and the Earth does not move. So that's a little above my pay grade. I can't contemplate or fathom that at all. I feel like there must be a tremendous literature behind this. That would be a very deep rabbit hole to go down to figure out why they believe these things. So I just don't have the ability to respond to that. So we're not going with flat earth here. That's all I can tell you. Now,
Rabbi, I've often wondered what this actually looked like, because it seems that the water is in some way, it's all one at this point, because there has to be a separation. So what is it like when it's all one? Is that where this extended surface comes into play? There's water above and below, but yeah, the separation hasn't actually started yet, has it? Isn't it like verse 8 or 9?
Good
questions.
6.
Yeah.
Good question. Not entirely clear. Let's see where we can get with this. So what we know about the word rakia is that it's some type of we could go with extended surface. I think that's a decent translation. So let there be a rakia, an extended layer. Somebody said layer. I think layer is also a good translation. Although Lisa was suggesting a layer of earth, we don't know a layer of what. Although I would say that the many classic commentaries understand that as a layer of air, like the atmosphere, okay? And others will suggest something else perhaps, but we'll go with the most simple, okay? So let there be a layer betoch hamayim, okay? Now what's betoch? We have the bet prefix, which means in, and then we have the word toch. I think toch is a new word for us. Anyone know what the word toch means? Here's toch, right over here. Anyone know?
Mist.
Huh?
In the mist.
Mist? Where do you get that from?
Hold on. My eyes. Make sure I'm from my Humash.
Yeah, I want to hear this. Which chumash do you have?
Can you hold on? It's Art Scroll.
You have the art scroll. Okay. So I want to hear what art scroll says about Genesis chapter 1, verse 6.
In the midst.
Oh, midst. M-I-D-S-T.
Yeah.
I would
Yes.
thought you were saying in the mist, like
No.
misty
Midst.
vapor.
Yeah.
Okay, midst. Okay, that's a fancy word. Toch means middle. Okay. Betoch hamayim means in the middle of the mayim. Toch, middle, hamayim, the water, implied construct of in the middle of the water. Okay. And God said, there shall be a layer in the middle of the water. Okay, let's continue. Vihi. Okay, now the vav here is and the yehi is just like this yehi over here. But we did mention in a past class that it's illegal. Remember, it's illegal to have two letters in the beginning of a word, both of which have a shiva underneath them. The shiva is the two dots underneath these two vertical dots underneath the yud here. Yehi, like you have over here, bitoch. We talked in one of the classes about why sometimes the what did we ask? Why sometimes it's ve in the beginning of a word as and sometimes it's u for and, right? And I talked a little bit about that the vav takes different forms, but either way it means and. Here you see that vav and has an e sound. Now, why does it have an e sound? Because if I would keep it with its regular shiva, like this letter has, and it would be ve, then I would have ve yehi, and I would have two shivas in a row in the beginning of a word, which is illegal in Hebrew. So, therefore, now why don't you make it u yehi? I don't know. You just don't. I'm not sure the rule about that. But instead, the way that Hebrew changes it is it just makes it an E sound, and it kind of includes the yud in it, right? V. It's an E sound, what's called like a long E sound. What's the difference between a long and a short? I don't know. But when you have the single dot, which is the E, by itself, meaning not followed by the letter yud, it's called a chirik chaser. Literally means a lacking chirik. And when it has the yud following it, it's called a chirik malay, or a full chirik. One is considered, let me think, am I right about this? One is considered a so-called small vowel, which is the chirik chaser. That would be the chirik, the E, the dot, without a yud following it. And one is considered a large vowel, the dot with the yud following it. I would say in practice, we don't differentiate how they're pronounced. Maybe once upon a time, there was some slight differentiation. Maybe one was extended. We don't do that. We don't have that in modern Hebrew pronunciations today in any tradition that I'm aware of. But it does make a difference, large vowels and small vowels, in other ways that we're not going to go into right now. But what I'm just pointing out is this vav is the and vav. Instead of being vi yehi, the vowel becomes an E sound that includes the yod. Vihi, and it shall be. Okay, again, and God said, there shall be a rakia. in the middle of the water, in the midst, if you like, and it shall be mavdil. Now, who recognizes the shoresh of the word mavdil? Because we had it already.
Bet Dalet Ahmed.
Bet Daled Lamed. Where do we have that? Do you remember?
I wanted to ask you if this is related to the word malavdo, or if that's if
Oh,
I'm
mi
just mixing them.
livado?
Yeah.
No,
Okay,
no.
maybe I'm.
Thank you for asking. Mi livado. That's interesting. I mean, I never really considered it. Mi livado, as in ein od mi livado. There is none other than him.
Yes.
Mi livado means other than him, is based on the word livad, lamed bet dalid, which is really based on the word bad, bet dalid, which is really based on the shorish badad, bet dalid dalid, which means alone. Okay, so bad, badad, and levad all basically mean alone. Livado with the vav at the end it means like him alone. And then the mem is like then, ain o, there is no other me than livado, him alone. Okay, but that would be bad or badad, and then the lamed kind of comes as a prefix, levad, as opposed to bet dal lamed, badal. Although it's interesting, what does badal mean? We had it earlier in verse this one. this one in 4, where it said, and God saw the light that it was good, vayavdel Elohim, and God badal. What did he do? He
Separated them.
separated, very good, or divided between the
Is this
light
like
and the darkness. So here,
Is it
God says, there shall be, what? Someone speaking?
is it a curtain
Who said a curtain?
tray?
No, I know it's you speaking. What are you saying? Give me context. What are you saying?
Oh, I'm asking you if that word also means a curtain or some kind of like a curtain that you would have in your tent that divides two different
I've
chambers.
never seen the word used as a curtain,
Okay.
to be honest. Not that I can think of offhand. So, vihi mavdil, and it shall be a divider, okay, from the shorish bet dalad lamed. Oh, you notice that when I did just the bet dalad by itself, bad alone, like I was telling you. Anyway, bet dalad lamed, though, that's funny. Alloy tinge Ross. No, no, ignore that. Let it be mavdil, a divider. Now, this form, okay, just to explain this form, what's the mem doing here? What's the yud doing here? This is a little bit complex, what I'm telling you right now. If you want, you can tune out. And just get the main thing you should get is, again, the shorish badal, meaning to divide. And here it's a noun. Vihi mavdil will be a divider or a division, but it will explain what's going on in this form. So this is the causative form. And you're going to say, yeah, that's a verb, though. Causative is a verb. Yeah. So in Hebrew, you can have verbs that act as nouns. You can have a verb that means someone is doing something, and the same verb can refer to the one doing it as a noun. So here, the noun mavdil means the one that is dividing. Okay? Whereas you could also say a person is dividing. You would say the same word, mavdil. Now, where does this come up famously in Jewish life? Every week, Jews following the Sabbath do a ceremony known as Havdalah. Probably many of you may have heard of Havdalah, right? Havdalah. Havdalah is from this shoresh, bet dal lamed, Havdalah. It's also in the causative form. And so the one who is performing the service of Havdalah is the Mavdil, the one who's, the Havdalah means separating. We're separating the holiness of the Sabbath from the week that is following it, that is not holy, it's mundane, separating the holy and the mundane. So that ceremony is known as Havdalah. The one performing the ceremony is the Mavdil, the separator. But if he would say, what am I doing right now? I am Mavdil. I am separating. Okay, so the verb can be used as a verb or a noun. The act of separating, or the one who's doing the act of separating. So this, let me bring up that little file we made with like notes on it, because it's just easy for me to show you. Genesis notes. Okay, here's our little fun file here. So let's make a new line. Okay, now this is the way I'm going on a bit of a tangent. This is going to be very technical right now. So if you don't like technical stuff, why are you here? But if you don't like technical stuff, you could tune out. Let's see if I can type in Hebrew. Hif eel. Okay. Hif eel, this word hif eel means the causative verb form. Okay. Now what you need to know about the verb forms, they're known as in Hebrew as binyanim. Okay. Binyanim. Binyanim. I'm a little clumsy when I type Hebrew. Okay. Binyanim. So a binyan in Hebrew literally means a construction or a building. Binyanim is plural. When we construct verbs, so the different forms like active, passive, causative, reflexive, imperative, each one of those forms is known as a binyan. So there's something called binyan hif'il, the causative form. Now, I'll give you an example. Let's say, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the active verb form is called binyan. What's it called? I forgot if it's called pa'al or po'al, but you're always using, when you want to demonstrate a verb form, you always use the verb, the shoresh pei ayin lamed. In Hebrew, this verb means to act, to do. And the noun form, which means a verb, an action, is a po'al, okay? A po'al is an action, and it's the verb is to act, okay? And this is the shoresh, pa'al, pei ayin lamed. So I'll always conjugate it into the form that I'm demonstrating. So hif'il is the causative form, when I cause something to happen, okay? So that means any shoresh that I'm going to put in the causative form is going to mimic this. It's going to mimic this form. So, for example, if I take the shoresh badal to divide, right? Pa'al badal. So pa'al is hif'il. That means that if I want to say to divide in a causative way, I'm going to say heave deal. Okay, all I've done is I've replaced the pei ayin lamed letters of the shoresh, meaning an action, to act, with the action that I'm demonstrating, bet dalad lamed. So hif'il means to cause to act, it's causative. Hivdil means to cause to separate. Okay. All right. Now, but okay. I hope you're with me. If you're into the technical stuff, this word hivdil is the past tense masculine singular form. That means if I want to say he caused to happen, that's hif'il. He or it, masculine, caused to separate, hivdil. But what if I want to say it in present tense? So in present tense, that is the word in our verse. Now we're bringing it back. Mav deal. Okay. Mav deal is here's the past tense. Heave deal. He did cause to separate. Mav deal, he is causing to separate. Okay. So when I see the word mav deal, that's how I know it's in a causative form. I'll put it a little bit differently. Let's go to our archetype here, the pa'al, right? And I said that hif, where is it? Hif'il. is hif'il is he caused it to act. So now, based on what I told you, let's see who's paying attention. I want to say he is causing to act, right? So then what would I do with this shorish? Pei ayin lamed.
Maf'il.
Maf'il. Perfect, Abigail. So hif'il, past tense, would become maf'il in the present tense. Okay? So hif'il, maf'il, hivdil, mavdil. Okay? So coming back to the verse, mavdil is the present tense. It's the present tense. Let me out here. Causative, masculine, singular form of the verb to divide. So it's, and it shall be divided, causing to divide. Okay. If you want to be precise in the exact literal translation, it shall be causing to divide. Bane, what's bane? We had it already.
Between.
Between mayim la mayim. Okay, between mayim. Mayim is, of course, water. La mayim. Now, this gets a little bit technical, but how would you translate la mayim?
For the
Okay.
water?
For the water, or lama could mean for, or what else?
From.
The mem prefix would be from, not lama. Lama could be for or
Z?
Two.
two. So mayim and lamayim be water to water, between water to water. And then, as Trey pointed out, the kamatz vowel under the lamed, adds the definite article. So it would be between water to the water, Okay. So if you want a very literal translation, and God said, there shall be a rakia in the middle or in the midst of the water, and it will be causing to divide between water and the water. Okay. Now, from that very awkward literal translation from the Hebrew idiom, we can get something in the English idiom that looks like this over here. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. So it's interesting that here divide is like an active verb, but I'm showing you that really it's a causative verb. Let it cause to divide. What difference does it really make? I don't know, but the waters from the waters. It's not really what it says, right? It doesn't even say the waters. It says water or waters to, not from, but to the waters. Okay, so you could say, okay, that's just an awkward Hebrew idiom, but in English you would say it this way, and I accept that. In English, we just don't talk like that. So this English expression expresses what the Hebrew is trying to express. I grant you that. I just want to be very. That's way too small for you even to see. I don't know why I bothered showing you that. Here, you can see it better.
So, Rabbi, this causing the dividing,
Yeah.
because it's in a present tense, does this suggest that it's always happening? Like it's always present? It's not like it divided and then it was done?
Okay, not gonna like my answer.
Constantly dividing?
You're not gonna like my answer. My answer is maybe, meaning that is a possibility that it's saying, and it shall be dividing always, or maybe it shall be causing to divide at that moment that God is speaking, because it's a quote, right? This is a quote. God is speaking, and it shall be. Right? What would he have said otherwise? And it shall be having caused to divide? Doesn't really make sense, because this is kind of happening in real time. So what other tense should God have used? That's why I'm saying I don't know that it has to be understood that way, but it could have that meaning, but it may not necessarily have that meaning. Though
Thanks.
it wouldn't be wrong either to say so, that it is always doing so. Okay, so there's some hostile comments in the YouTube. Was it you guys discriminate against Ethiopian Jews? Now we know your true color. Oh boy. Just for the record, any discrimination against your Ethiopian Jews, I'm not for that. Okay, so I don't know why you're generalizing that. I'm doing it. Is there racism in the world? Yes. Is there discrimination in the world? Yes. The Jews that get discriminated a lot? Oh, a whole lot. Am I mad at every single person of a particular race or color or gender because of it? No. I understand the world's full of jerks. Don't be one. That's all. Don't be one. But you're being one. Because I don't condone racism. I don't condone discrimination. So I don't want to be painted with a brush of someone who might look like me that does it, and I don't want my group to be painted with such a brush. So just like you're like, oh, some people are racist against Ethiopian Jews because they discriminate and generalize and say Ethiopian Jews are all X, Y, or Z and therefore deserve to be treated as less than others. It's exactly what you're doing right now. So get out of here, you racist. We don't like you don't like racism.
Can I ask a question about that?
What's that?
Can I ask you a question about that, Rabbi?
I don't know what you mean. I just deleted the guy off the channel, so I don't know. I didn't even read his other comments. I'm done. But what are you asking about?
I was going to ask you, what color are Jews?
What color are Jews? All colors.
Right.
Jewish is not a color.
I wish you hadn't blocked him before you said that, because I think some people need to hear that.
Well, I mean, some people can hear it right now if they want. But I already said what I had to say to the racists. Jewish is not a color. Okay. So how would you use Rakia in daily talk? I wouldn't. Okay. So what other questions or comments on that verse, which we've more or less translated?
I'm wondering, I'm kind of imagining this in a way of like that the earth was already kind of formed under the water, like, and then this is God kind of saying, forming the glaciers in a way and pulling back some of the water to reveal the land, and that land then separates the oceans. That's kind of what I have in my head, and I don't know if that's necessarily the correct or like something that makes sense.
I have to be honest. I didn't really understand what you said. What are you? Again, there's what's going on in this verse, and then we have the following day when God is going to move the waters. It says He's going to gather the waters into one place, and the earth is revealed, or it says the dry land is revealed. Which are you referring to when you're talking about glaciers? And I hear you said something about glaciers and something about land, and I'm getting mixed up in my head.
Just that in a way that God is kind of starting to separate. So that's how, like, because because I used to be a physics major, so I have this in my mind where the science and everything, and I'm thinking, is this how the glaciers were formed? Is he originally just decided, all right, this is how I'm going to start separating the water. I need to cool down some of this water and let it start to separate from each other and create different forms of water in that sense. I think that's what I'm just kind of imagining. This is the day glaciers were formed. I guess that's all.
Oh, you're saying that the division between water and water is like the difference is like a division between different forms of water, like ice versus liquid, that type of a thing?
Possibly, yeah.
So I don't know. Oh, so let me share these comments with you, because this is a very big mystery. There are lots of different views on what's going on over here. I never heard that one, but I can't really rule anything out. I would rule some things out, but I'm not a physicist, so I don't know enough about physics to say yay or nay. I don't have knowledge to say, But if I look at some commentary, okay, Ramban over here, let me see. He has a particular comment that I wanted to highlight. And he's quoting a lot of other commentaries, and he's kind of, okay, here's what he says. He quotes some other people's commentaries and responds to them. Then he says, he said, I'll show you, see if I can show you the English. Here, he says, do not expect me to write anything about it. Okay, here's what he says. This is part of the process of creation, which those who know it are obliged to conceal. Meaning there's a passage in the Talmud that says that you're not allowed to teach a certain secret teachings known as the Ma'aseh Bereshit, which means the act of creation. And these are Kabbalistic, esoteric teachings that explain the depth of these passages. And one who understands it on its deep Kabbalistic level is not allowed to teach it, certainly not publicly, maybe not even to a group, maybe only to an individual, and a very worthy individual. And I'm certainly not privy to that. But the Ramban, Nachmanides, who was a Kabbalist, he says this is part of the process of creation, the Ma'aseh Bereshit, what I just told you, which those who know it are obliged to conceal. So do not expect me to write anything about it, as the subject is one of the mysteries of the Torah, and the verses in their plain meaning do not require such an interpretation, since Scripture itself did not go into it at length. Meaning, let me just pause on that a little bit. You're a physicist. You appreciate the wonders of the universe. You appreciate the complexities of cosmology and the complexities of the development of the universe and the physics itself. And you probably studied for many years, and you took many courses, and you read many textbooks. And yet, what would take many years of study and many textbooks full of information to explain, the book of Genesis just writes it off in a few verses. And like, here's all you need to know about it. Okay. What was it? There's a story of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs was at a convention. He's no longer living of blessed memory. He was the chief rabbi of England. He was at a convention of like rabbis and theologians, and this, I think, an astrophysicist named Jastrow, I forgot his first name, Robert Jastrow, maybe. He's actually a descendant of a Torah scholar whose name is Marcus Jastrow, who wrote a famous dictionary of the Talmud, which I refer to a lot. And it's used ubiquitously in rabbinic schools. But so his descendant, this scientist, I think Robert Jastrow, I don't remember his first name, he gets up and he says something about his view on religion. He says, I'm not a theologian, but, and he said, he says whatever he says, he expresses his opinion about religion. So then Rabbi Jonathan Sachs gets up like this, and he goes, he said, I'm not a scientist, but my view of astronomy goes something like this. If I could sum up astronomy in one sentence, it would be this: twinkle, twinkle, little star. In other words, he was highlighting, it's like, how ridiculous is it for you, the theologian, the astrophysicist, the Astro-Jastro, they called him, the astrophysicist, to get up here and say your opinion about theology and boil it down to a few words. Meanwhile, the scholars on the topic have spent our whole life studying it. That's like me getting up and saying, I'm not an astronomer, but twinkle, twinkle, little star. Okay, like, so why am I saying that? Because the Torah spends very little time on cosmology. The Torah spends very little time on the origin of the universe. Not to say because God isn't an expert on the topic, but he's saying that's not the topic of this book. That's not what this book is about. and the Ramban's opening comments to the Torah are very beautiful, where he says the purpose of the book, I spoke about this to some extent, certainly in other classes I spoke about this. The purpose of the book is to teach man how to live righteously. So what the book wants to do is get through, kind of in as few words as possible, a very brief origin story of how we get to the point where man is created, so then we can begin the relationship between man and God, which is the purpose of everything. Like we said, the Spirit of God hovering over the waters. He's not ready to land because man isn't here yet. We're just trying to get to man. So I cannot extract really from these verses too much information that will comport with what is said among scientific minds. So I know there's a temptation to try to, make it all fit, but I think we're missing the purpose when we try to do that. So okay. So I was in the middle of saying his commentary. So he says those are my comments on his comments. He says the verses in their plain meaning do not require such an interpretation, since scripture itself did not go into it at length. That means even the Kabbalistic stuff, which probably would comport very much with physics, and I'm not a Kabbalist, but the more Kabbalistic information I'm exposed to, the more I see how much science and Torah really do come together in a beautiful way, in a very elegant way. And in fact, that's the topic of a lot of Schroeder's book, where he talks about really the confluence of these things using Kabbalistic concepts, etc. But that's not the purpose. Even studying Kabbalah, as much as people might like the idea, is not the purpose of Torah study. The purpose is to know how to be a righteous human being in a relationship with God. The Kabbalistic stuff, it kind of goes into it's like going into the wiring and the circuitry of the computer, how exactly it works, right? So it's the metaphysics, whereas physics, Kabbalah is metaphysics. But that's sort of like parenthetical. You don't need to know how it works to know that it works. You don't need to know how your cell phone works to know how to turn it on and make a phone call. But why do you get your cell phone? You have it so you can make a phone call with it or use the apps or whatever, even if you don't know how to read the code. Kabbalah is the code. How do you read the code? The computer code. I don't need to know how to read the computer code. The purpose is, does the program run? Can I run the program? And how can I benefit from the program? So, okay, so that's what the Ramban says. We don't need to know this information, and therefore it's not written in the scripture, and those who know it are not even allowed to teach it. He says, and to give the interpretation is forbidden, even to those who know it. And then he says these words, because he was a great man, and so much the more to us. He says, even if a person knows the information, he's not allowed to publicize it. He says, and if that's true for someone who knows it, well, the more so for someone like me who knows nothing. He says. So I think those comments kind of sum up, what is the Rakia? I could say more, but it's late. I'll just say this on a very simple level. The most plain understanding of Rakia is, yes, it's the atmosphere. And the division between waters is the waters below, it's the seas, and the waters above is the clouds. Now, that's going to raise a whole lot of questions, and maybe when the questions are raised, we can deal with them. That's, I would say, one of the classical views of the plain meaning of the text. Now, there's certainly much deeper meaning in the text, and some go as far as to say, no, this is something spiritual, or the waters that it's dividing. Really, this will come more into relief when we see the next verse. So maybe we'll wait till verse 7 before we talk about alternative understandings of the Rakia. But I would say the most basic, plain, down to earth, if you will, understanding of Rakia is that it's the layer of the atmosphere that divides between the oceans or the waters below, as it were, and the waters above, which is the clouds. So Rashi has some interesting comments on this, because the commentaries deal with the question, what do you mean? It says the Shamayim, the sky, was created on the first day. So what's being created right now? So there's different answers to that. Maybe we'll talk about it next time. Some say, yeah, there was already an atmosphere, but the atmosphere was very watery, right? There was no clear like division between the water and the air. Like, and you as a physicist maybe know something about the primordial earth, and I don't know that much, but maybe the early atmosphere wasn't such, like I said, like a solid atmosphere, like a bubble of air that was really distinct from the water in the atmosphere. Maybe there was a lot of vapor, and so there wasn't a breathable atmosphere because the water and the air were mixed up. And this is more or less what Rashi says. He bases it on a verse in Job. Job talks a lot about the wonders of nature for reasons that we won't discuss right now, but that the atmosphere originally, it says, was very soft. It was like all mixed up, the water and the air, and then God just sort of solidified the atmosphere, as it were, which is an ironic term because air is not solid, it's gaseous, but in other words, firmed it up. There's the word firmament. Firmed it up in such a way that the waters were distinct and divided, and the waters were carried above the sky, or whatever, above the breathable part of the atmosphere where we inhabit, into clouds above, and held down. It both held down the waters below while holding up waters above, which is quite wondrous and miraculous, but that's the nature of the firmament, and that nature was put into it now. At the same time, the commentaries say that the evaporation cycle was also created, meaning the nature of the atmosphere was put into a balance right now, whereas before that it was not in a balance, but now it was put into a balance where it's just the perfect density that it both stops the oceans from evaporating too quickly. So you have this very vaporous, misty atmosphere. That's why I thought you were going earlier, Lisa, with the mist, like a very misty atmosphere where the atmosphere is so light that the water is evaporating very easily, and you got all this water in the air, or that the water above is just pouring down and there's too much rain. But it's that perfect balance where you have the waters held down, the waters held up. It evaporates exactly as much as it needs to, and it rains exactly as much as it needs to sustain what? Human life. And that's the point that's being made in this verse. God's preparation for human life. He made a rakia. He made an atmosphere that's perfectly balanced in a way that it could hold down the waters not to evaporate too much, hold up the clouds not to rain too much, but to allow just the right amount of precipitation. I don't know which way is the precipitation, but just the right amount of evaporation and just the right amount of rain. That is the perfect harmony to support life on this planet, which will then develop when in the next days, when the land is revealed and the plants begin to grow, etc., etc. I hope I didn't talk too much. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
funny how we want to know exactly what every word means and exactly what God did at creation and exactly what it looked like. And it's, and of course we never will, but we find it
that's
hard
correct.
to accept that.
I mean, I don't know if we never will, but I'll just say that it's not the point. It's not the point. It's not a physics textbook. Right? So some Ramban says these verses of creation are very, very brief because God lets us know just as much as he needs us to know. And he has a very lengthy comment in the beginning of Genesis that I suggest everybody read. You'll have it on Safari if you want in English, on verse 1. So,
Rabbi, this rakia, when it can be used in the way of beating gold flat,
yeah.
is that the same word that's used in the making of the Ark of the Covenant when the cherubim were beaten out of one piece of gold? Is it the same word? Oh, I can look it up. Sorry.
It's definitely a verb used in the beating of gold, but I don't recall that it's used in the construction of the vestments of the tabernacle specifically. I don't recall that verb being used there. We don't really have a description of how it's created. We just have kind of a description of what it's meant to look like in the end result, and then we have a narrative that says, and they made it.
Yeah, there's reference to it, things being beaten out of one piece, like the menorah.
Right. So there,
I can look it up anyway.
that's not the verb. No, the verb there, the word there is miksha. Miksha, what's the word from the Hebrew word kashem, meaning hard, meaning it's supposed to be out of one singular block, one block of one piece of gold, not several pieces soldered together. But the word there is miksha, from kashem, meaning hard, solid, firm. That's what it means. The word rokah is not used there. We could, so you could use a concordance. You could do homework and see where else it comes up in scripture. If you have a Hebrew concordance, there's probably one on Sepharia. There's definitely concordances, Hebrew concordances on the internet. If you go to alhatorah.org, I think ALHA, alhatorah, TORAH.org, and you type in, I don't know if you could type in Hebrew. There might be maybe there's like a virtual keyboard. I don't know. If you could put in that shorish, Reish Kuf Ayin, and search, it'll show you everywhere in the Tanakh that it comes up, and then you can look up those passages. I don't know if that's too much homework for you, but I don't want to get so distracted by that.
Don't some of these natural or words regarding nature and wildlife and all these things, they come up a few chapters later in the story of Noah, and the context is something that is easier for us to visualize. So some of these words, we can maybe more solidify their meaning as we get to those chapters.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not sure what you're specifically referring to, but the Rakia doesn't really come up again, because in the next verse, God, well, not in the next verse, but in verse 8, God renames the Rakia Shamayim, meaning sky or heavens, and then we never hear of the Rakia again. That's not true. So so it comes up again in Ezekiel. Ezekiel has this vision of the divine chariot, and it says above the heads of the chayot, which are these, literally means beasts, but it's these angelic creatures that he sees, with several faces and everything is very psychedelic. It says above their heads is the Rakia, which means the Rakia, or he says he says he sees a Rakia. The word Rakia is definitely there. He says it looks like ice. It's similar to, this looks like ice. Obviously, it's a prophetic vision. So these are spiritual things that are being beamed into his brain as physical pictures that are representing spiritual concepts. But there seems to be a Rakia that's very high up. And this is what some of the commentaries say is more mystical, between the water, and there's spiritual water. And that's something I didn't decide not to go into it. I just, given the time limitation, I'm not going to go into it. But I don't want to say the word Rakia doesn't come up again, but when it does, it has a more spiritual context. If someone asks me, we can talk about it in the future. But tonight I have to end the class.
Thank you, Rabbi.
The explanation from Rambam, it comes off as logical. The text can only say what it says. So just to clarify, it's not Rambam as in Maimonides. It's Ramban with an N, Ramban. The N standing for Nachman, which was his father. Rambam stands for Rabbi Moshe. It's a Hebrew acronym. Resh Mem Bet Mem. Rabbi Moshe ben, son of Maimon. So he's known as Maimonides, the son of Maimon. And then Ramban with an N is a Hebrew acronym. It stands for Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman. Rabbi Moshe, the son of Nachman, therefore it's called Nachmanides. So I was quoting from Nachmanides, not Maimonides. Okay, gotta go. Thank you all for joining. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Good night.
Not next week, same time. Next week's a holiday. We have Shavuot. So the week after.
All right. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you,
right,
Rabbi.
let me just think. Sunday is Shavuot, so there's no Ovadia class because Sunday night is Shavuot, and then Shavuot goes from Sunday night until Tuesday night, so it'll still be a holiday until Tuesday evening. So I'm not going to do a class next week. We'll just no class next week. You're off the hook. 2 weeks.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all
See
for
you in 2
joining. Have a
weeks.
great night.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you, Rabbi.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Night.